Welcome back to Cars and Farms today. We're in North Carolina. Sandford, North Carolina, to be in fact. Today we're at the old Gilliam Mill Park at their annual crank up. We're going to take a look around, see what there is here. Lots of old stuff. You'll really love it. So I was going to do a normal video for you guys, but it's a little too loud, so a voiceover is going to have to work. So we're going to walk through the park today, and I'm going to poorly explain a lot of this stuff to you, all the old machines and stuff, and probably give you a lot of facts that aren't true. Here we go. So the first thing we're going to check out here is this big steam engine. Looks like it came out of Bay State Iron Works out of Erie, Pennsylvania. Would have been a big iron mill plant or something like that this thing would have came out of. It would have ran similar equipment to this back in the day with the leather belt. The big wheel on top, that's a counterweight to keep it spinning. And then it runs down here on a leather belt all the way to this log splitter. I'm not sure if that log splitter was homemade or actually made to be a log splitter from a factory somewhere. But this thing ran pretty good. It did have the belt fall off during the day. So these guys right here are using an old technique how to pin this leather belt back together. So how they fix it, they crimp the metal ends onto each end of the belt, and then they would run a metal pin through those, kind of daisy chaining it back and forth there to get the belt to hold back together. And then to retighten the belt, all they do is put it back up on the wheels and spin it around a few times. And as you can see, that log splitter still works. Splits logs like you wouldn't believe. This was way better than doing it with the axe back in the day, that's for sure. But this machine right here is unforgiving. You put your finger in between that thing and the log, you're gonna be walking out with one less finger. And no one wants that. And this is what everyone came to see. Watch the biggest engine on the farm fire up. So they use air here to push these wheels around to get them spinning. And then they slowly start introducing fuel until it starts igniting. And then before you know it, it takes off and then it runs nice and smooth. But it is a sight to watch fire up, and you don't want to stand under it because it'll just cover you in soot. And trust me, I found that out the hard way. But just look at the size of the flywheels on this thing. This machine right here would have powered factories, farm equipment, stuff like that, agricultural pumps. But today, powers a saw. And all the wood that's actually sawn on the farm on these days actually goes back into the farm to build buildings, repair stuff like that. And all this wood is donated by local people in the area. So it kind of really brings the community together to come out here, cut the wood, listen to these old engines, and watch all these volunteers work hard to put on a show for everyone out here. But I know one thing, I wouldn't want to be on the business end of this saw. That is a massive blade spinning with a lot of weight, and you'll be able to see him pull this handle here, and that actually adjusts the whole log over some, so they can cut that next board out of it, and just watch this thing go right through that log. Doesn't even hardly slow the machine down. It just runs right through it. Amazing the technology they had even back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And as you can imagine, this was a very dangerous job back in the day. And just the sheer amount of pulleys and belts that your arms or legs or clothing could get trapped in, kind of unthinkable now with all the safety rules we got now. And over here's all the steam engine stuff. So this whole side is steam powered. Very cool to see this many steam engines in one place. Probably won't see it too many places in the country besides right here. These volunteers here are oiling up this machine. It's another giant spinning blade. But this one does something a little different. This actually cuts shakes. So the old wood tiles that used to be on the walls and on the roof, those are shakes. So they cut them out of wood here, out of these square blocks. You'll see him run it here in a second. So he's actually turning the pressure up on it and getting it spinning real good here. Then you'll see how easy this machine used to cut shakes back in the day. So let's sit back and enjoy these masters at their craft. Let's watch this all work. And here you can see a guy laying the actual wood shakes out, how they would be on a house. So each one of these wood shakes is actually built like a wedge almost. It's thicker on one end than the other. And that was used so they could stack it and make it more flat up against the walls and the roofs. But pretty cool. That before we had modern asphalt shingles, that's what you had. And then the guy said, hey, take some, so everyone took a shingle home with them. So that's pretty cool. Get a little souvenir for the ride home. Then after all the wood was cut, they let us walk right up to it, slowed it way down so it was a little safer. Still not very safe, but a little safer. And we checked it all out. This next machine you're going to see here is actually a tobacco stick maker. So they take 2x4-ish shaped wood and cut it into these long 1x1 sticks. So this machine was built just to cut these sticks. Nothing else, just to cut these perfect sticks to dry tobacco on back in the day, back when that was a big industry in this area. And as you can tell, these guys know what they're doing. They've been here before, and most of them probably actually used to dry tobacco back in the day, whenever this was a big industry in the area. And you can see the whole operation here is run off a little gas motor, and at that, it's a vintage gas motor, so props to them for keeping it vintage. And this is actual sticks that they were making. You can see it doesn't take very long to get a few going. They must have been cutting wood for maybe 2 to 3 minutes to get that pile right there. And the best part about this event, it gets everyone together to come just hang out and talk and reminisce about some stuff. Then we made it back over here to the sawmill, where a guy was teaching us how to file the teeth down on the blade of the saw. Every one of those teeth was actually just straight cut across and straight sharpened, so that was pretty interesting. Not like today's modern saws. Another cool thing about the old Gilliam Mill Park here is it actually has a little concert venue. So people will have their weddings and other social events out here. And normally on event days, they have some good music playing. So let's take a listen. Another cool thing about the event, all these volunteers come out here not only to have a good time and to run some engines, but they're actually out here to help teach you about the history, teach you about the past, teach you about how people in this area used to make money back in the day. This guy here, he was doing a whole presentation on how they made pitch, tar, and turpentine. But it's pretty cool, these volunteers bringing out all their own stuff, all their own tools, and kind of showing off what they know and all their cool stuff they've collected over the years. This property is also covered in old buildings. Here's an old tobacco shack where they used to dry all the tobacco leaves back in the day, and they'd use those tobacco stakes they were cutting earlier to hang up inside these barns. And there's a few cabins out here that are remakes of what houses would have looked like back in the day when people actually lived in this area. And these houses were actually full of cool old antiques, but we didn't have quite the time to go look through them all. Then here we got the blacksmith shop, and he was actually in there hammering out some metal, teaching people how that was done back in the day. And you can't have a good place to have fun with your family without an ice cream shop to get good homemade ice cream. And then I saved the best for last, a water wheel powered grain mill. This place would turn corn into grits into cornmeal. So this place was absolutely packed full of old tools, workbenches, measuring scales, all kinds of cool antiques. So if you like old antiques, this is definitely a place you need to come check out. And this building was built exactly like the original one was built. Same techniques and everything. Pretty cool that a bunch of buddies on the weekend just got together and built this whole park, really. And then it was donated to the state so they could keep it going. And this right here is actually where the water flows through to go turn the wheel here at the end. Get a better close-up on here. We're actually coming down here to help the guys who are actually running the mill. They had a problem with the belt sliding off. So we came down and at least gave them our opinions. And we actually got it fixed and running quite well. And here you can see the guy opening the valve over there on the left. And here comes the water. All the water is held up on top of the hill in a big reservoir, and then it flows down through some pipes through this chute and then starts spinning the wheel. You'll see here in a second they'll give it a little turn to get it started, and then once it gets started it just keeps on turning. And look at all those gears are moving. Now all these gears run back inside and actually turn the mills themselves. So pretty cool to see all this old stuff still being used, and it's built just like it was. All these parts were salvaged off other mills over the year and all brought here, put back together into a working mill. So once the water does its job and starts spinning this wheel, it'll all flow into this concrete box, then down this little stream into a bigger stream here at the bottom, and it just keeps on flowing right downhill. And what's all that water power doing? It's turning these big stones inside these wooden boxes. See the shaft spinning there? And out comes grits and cornmeal. and he's actually taking the grits and cornmeal that was ground a little too coarse. He's going to throw it back in the top there and then let it regrind, get a little better grind to it, and then we'll show you how they actually separate the grits from the cornmeal, from the outer shells of the corn that's used for animal feed. This machine here was very, very noisy. It's only because this is what actually shakes it and separates out your grits from your cornmeal, from your outside husk that you'd feed to an animal. So you can see here at the very far end is the more finer stuff, which would be your cornmeal. A little bit coarser stuff would be your grits, and then the coarsest stuff all comes out the other end into this bag right here, right there, that's flowing all over the floor. And that'd go towards your animal's feed, kind of the husk and all the larger stuff that we wouldn't necessarily want to eat. And the guy running it was kind enough to open it up while it was running to show us the inner workings of how it actually sifts out the grits from the cornmeal from the husk. So that was pretty cool of him. And if you get a little hungry while watching the process of how they do it, you can stop right here at the counter, buy you some grits, buy you some cornmeal, go home and make you some cornbread, and have a nice hot bowl of grits. This guy here was happy with his purchase. I can tell you that for sure. Well, the video's coming to an end here. Hope you liked what you seen, and hopefully I taught you a thing or two. But if you like this stuff, like this kind of content, like and subscribe to the channel. We always do all kinds of crazy stuff. So like, subscribe, do all that. And thanks Gilliam Mill and all the wonderful volunteers. We'll see you next time on Cars and Farms. And here's my beautiful face with my friends. And
shake it.
A silly little baby.
Shake it, Everly.
See ya.